So we are back with Bob Hall, and he's telling me about giving lessons to Linda McCartney, and you were just telling me a good story about...
oh, you want me to tell you that?
Yes, okay. Yes.
Well,
it kind of gives a little spin on celebrity.
One time I was given a lesson, and some guy jumped over the wall of their St. John's Wood house. It was quite a high wall. I mean, it must have been... You couldn't see over the top of it, so it's got to be 6 or 8 foot tall.
Right.
And he's got a guitar. And he came running through the garden and banging on the window, and he wants to sell this guitar to Linda, you know. And she was able to deal with him without alienating him, without making a big... She didn't freak out about it. She just dealt with it.
Yeah.
And sent him on his way. We didn't want the guitar, but no hard feelings. And
yeah.
And I thought that was really remarkable.
That is remarkable.
I would have thought...
Well,
I would have freaked out.
I just wonder, I wonder if some of that was the 60s. And just that, you know, a lot of celebrities like them, you know, or John Lennon or whatever, they realized that there were a lot of people that were going to kind of come at them and that they could kind of be peaceful about it as a result. Because there's a film of John dealing with some guy that just walks into their yard and starts basically trying to get an explanation about a song. And he deals with them very, you know.
Yeah, so it all passed off. It was just 5-10 minutes was finished, and that was it.
Well, I wanted to ask you, the Groundhogs backed Billy Boy. Were you in the band when they backed Billy Boy Arnold?
I don't think...
Because I think they did an album with them.
Okay, I have played with Billy Boy, and I have recorded with him.
Yeah.
But it was for Big Bear.
Okay.
I
think this was Red Lightning, as I recall.
From about 1971 to 1976 or so, Big Bear would bring over the American Blues Legends tour every year. It was, you know, it was a bunch of guys from Chicago or whatever, sort of thrown together.
Right.
Well, not all from Chicago, because it was Lightning Slim, Whispering Smith.
Right.
Eddie Burns from Detroit.
Right. Lowell. I know you guys recorded with Lowell, but maybe that was later on.
That was much later.
Okay.
I'm trying to think who else was on that tour. Washboard Willie.
Right. Was Slim Harpo on that?
No, I think he had died.
He died, okay.
By then, yes.
Yeah.
Good Rocking Charles was a
really? Wow.
Yeah. And mostly they brought over a whole band.
Right.
But they didn't know each other for the most part, and often they didn't really want to play together as a band. And also, some of them would stay because Jim Simpson was a Big Bear promoter. I mean, he was an agent as well, so he often booked tours for solo tours or duo tours with different people.
Right.
And they often needed a backing group. And Jim Simpson was interested in cheap backing groups.
Right.
And Browning and I were really cheap because we're in London and we've got jobs, you know.
Right.
So we got to do is
so you were really looking at what was going to satisfy you musically.
Yeah.
Primarily.
Yeah. So we got to play on dozens and dozens around. At one point,
did you work with Snooky and Homesick? Was that you guys?
That was us too. Yeah. And one time we did 3 albums in a day.
Wow. Crazy.
39 tracks in a day.
That's crazy.
And the last album, I can't remember which one it was now, but I can remember Jim Simpson saying, "Okay, we need one more track for this album. Let's do a great slow blues, really." And Bob Browning saying, "The last tube back to where we live, Kennington, leaves at 11:10. Do you want to pay for a cab?" And Jim Simpson said, "No." So, okay, let's do a fast one. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3 minutes.
Oh,
we ran to get the last tube.
Jeez.
So
was he from England?
Jim Simpson?
Yeah.
Yes, he's from Birmingham.
Okay.
But that's I mean, to his due, he put on a lot of good music, and I can't fault him for that. But it wasn't very commercially successful. I mean, I think artistically, some of the stuff that Homesick and
Snooky
did, that was really good.
Did you guys record with
Yes.
Those were your
Yeah,
records.
we did. Yeah, I thought they were excellent. So I mean, he tried, but I think the moment had passed. Blues was really popular in the '60s. Music is a fashion business, and the fashion was turning.
Yeah.
So there was still an
Were
audience.
these kind of the remnants of the American Folk Blues
Yes.
Festival?
Yeah.
Right.
So the audiences were declining.
Right.
And I think that
and it seems like in a way that's kind of what happened with the blues boom in England, is that you had this time from 65 through 1970 that it was really an in kind of thing, and then it gradually kind of withered away in a way.
Yeah, it had two revivals. In '77, I was supposed to leave a job in a town called Swindon and move back to London, and I had a farewell concert. And one of my neighbours in London was Ian Stewart.
Okay, right from the Stones. Yeah.
And I talked to him about doing this concert, and he said, "Well, I got a friend who plays drums." So we got Charlie Watts along to play drums.
Yeah.
And we got a horn section of people I think that Stu knew, and we made an album. I think we rehearsed in the afternoon, and we did the live concert in the evening, and Stu brought Ronnie Lane's mobile down to record it, and we made an album and we put it out.
And where was the concert? Do you remember?
It was in the Arts Centre in Swindon. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
And it was sold out, and it was good. It was great.
And was there a name for the group?
Yeah, it was called the Bob Hall George Green Boogie Woogie Band.
Oh,
George Green was another boogie woogie pianist who was very good.
Yeah.
And because Stu never thought he was good enough really to play with the band, he hardly ever sat in with us or anything.
Right.
But he liked George, so George and I. We had worked together. We used to tour Germany as a duo. The bass player of that band was Dave Green, who was a jazz bass player. But Charlie and Dave grew up together. They were next door neighbours.
Okay.
Charlie learned to play drums, and Dave learned to play the bass. And they played together.
Yeah.
And they played it in our band for a while. And we did quite a few gigs, mostly festival gigs, because we had to get Charlie along. And of course, if you told a festival you could bring Charlie Watts along,
they were going to hire you.
They were going to hire you on the spot.
Yeah, pretty much.
And so we were able to do that. And Alexis Korner was an old friend of mine, and I owed Alexis a lot. Every time my musical career, such as it was, would dip, and there'd be nothing going on, I think, what am I going to do now? The phone would ring, and Alexis, "Hey Bob, I got to do," And
now, when did you guys meet? In the mid '60s?
Yeah, I think we met. Alexis used to have a radio show,
right?
And he wanted to interview another neighbour of mine, Joanne Kelly, who was a fabulous slide guitar player, 12 singer, wonderful singer. Mm-hmm. Dave Kelly's older sister, and I had for years accompanied Joe. Mostly folk clubs and things like this, and Alexis had us on the radio, and that was how I first met him.
Right.
And I think we hit it off, and he would occasionally come up with some scheme.
Yeah.
And this time it was my scheme, because there was this band, and he came and joined us. So we had Alexis and Charlie, which were two very big names.
Wow.
For the rhythm
Yeah,
section.
absolutely. Yeah.
And Stu wanted a big name for the bass as well, so he wanted Jack Bruce to come and play, and Jack was willing to join the band, but he wouldn't play in a band where the band leader was less famous than he was. So he.
Well, at least he didn't have an ego.
No, of course not. So we had to change the name of the band. So it became Rocket 88.
And what year was this? Was this after Cream or before?
It would be after.
After.
It would be after, yeah. So it would be about 80, 81, something
81.
like that.
And how long did that group last?
Well, from 77 until about 82, 83.
Wow, so it was together for a while.
Yeah, and then it fell apart. I became very ill and I couldn't play for 2 or 3 years.
Right.
And Stu died suddenly without warning. Alexis died, and there was just, by the time I was well enough to play, there was nothing to reconstitute really. By which time, I think it was in 79, Paul Jones decided it was time for a blues revival, and he formed the blues band.
Okay.
And I got to play with the blues band because Dave Kelly and I are neighbours, and they didn't have a piano player, so.
Yeah. And for those that don't know, Paul Jones is the singer from Manfred Mann.
Yes, but he was also a film star.
Was he really? He was a star.
Yeah, literally. But Paul,
wow.
Geez, I can't remember them. He had 1 or 2 films where he was the
leading character.
The
That's
male
something.
lead. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
And he also did a lot of theatre work.
Right.
He was the male lead in Joseph's Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Wow.
Guys and Dolls, I think he did.
Too much.
On the London.
Now, was he also doing the radio show at that point, or was that later on?
I think he took that up when Alexis died.
Okay. So he basically took on that show.
He basically took over Alexis's show.
Yeah.
And based a lot on Paul's reputation, I think. The blues band were playing big venues, and we had a lot of fun.
Right.
And it brought an audience back to what was really British blues. Slightly different from the All-American sound. But, but there it was.
Yeah.
Maybe not hit parade material, but they sold a lot of records.
Dave Kelly was fairly early on too, right? Wasn't he kind of on the scene in the in the late 60s or mid 60s?
Yes, certainly, yes.
Yeah. I remember having a British blues album. They were these anthologies. I'm sure you remember them. They had, and you're on it. You were on it with
Joanne,
Savoy Brown, is what I remember.
Yes, yes.
You were on like one of the really early records with Savoy Brown, and I was like, these guys sound like the most authentic thing on here.
This was the label called it Immediate.
Yeah, but they were like selling them as bargain.
Well, that's the
kind
of label that Immediate was.
Right.
And towards the end, they wanted to keep putting these albums out.
Right.
And I had a little home tape recorder, and I recorded stuff which we then sold to Immediate.
Right. Because there's like Eric Clapton and Jimmy Page jamming together on it.
Yeah, that sort of stuff.
There's Jeremy Spencer, I think, on it, and a whole bunch of your compadres.
And Dave and Joanne are on those, and with me.
Right.
Playing piano on some of them anyway. They said we'll give you an advance and then royalties, and of course the advance was all we ever saw.
Of course. Natch, that's the record business.
Yeah, and the owner of the record label ended up escaping from the UK and moving to Los Angeles.
Really? Well, right where he belongs.
Right where he belongs.
So how long were you in Savoy Brown for? Was that?
Well, I was the original.
The original member,
player.
Yeah. Right.
The harmonica player, John O'Leary, and Kim came around my house when I lived in London. Knocked on the door and said, we're forming a blues band. You want to join?
Right.
And I said, well, have you got any gigs? No. Do there any other musicians? No. And I said, well, when you've got a band, give me a call. And a year later, they gave me a call, and sure enough, they had a band. And it was a hell of a band.
Right. You guys, you had like a West Indian, like a
He's African.
African singer.
Yes,
right.
Yeah, Bryce Porteous.
Who was really good.
He was really good.
Really.
And we had a West Indian drummer.
Oh, really? Okay.
Manning, yeah. So it was it's a really nice sounding good band. So I was happy to join.
Right.
And we formed our own club in Battersea, And in the summer, it was very loud. In the summer, I used to open the windows because there was no air conditioning or anything, you know. You could hear it down the street. And the neighbours got up a petition to complain about our club.
But when you say a club, I mean, did you guys actually? Was it a bar? Was it?
It was a pub,
Uh-huh.
and this was a room above a pub.
Mm.
And we had a weekly, I think Mondays.
Okay.
Club. But all sorts of people. I mean, I think Fleetwood Mac played it. I mean, all sorts of bands played it. It was,
Too much.
That club was very oversubscribed every week. I mean, we queues of people to get in. It was packed solid. Like almost every band I've ever played with, they said, "We're going to turn professional, Bob. Do you want to come and join with us?"
Right, and it's kind of like you're in a position where you can't. Yeah,
I don't really want to do that.
Right.
So when the band set off, I just played the gigs I could play.
Right.
And the ones I didn't, they didn't have a piano player.
Right. Right.
And I'm on the first couple of albums.
Right.
In fact, I think I'm on the first 4
Really?
albums.
Wow.
Yes, because the band lineup changed.
Right, because I know Chris Yulden or something.
When Chris Yulden came, it changed the feel of the band. Chris was very much a songwriter as well as a great frontman.
Right.
And we would kind of compose together in the studio, the whole band, you know.
Yeah.
So the third and fourth albums are very, you know, they're not just things we knocked up in the studio. They are mostly nice compositions.
Right.
I think we had the compositions on one side, on the second side we'd have some raucous, loud live session.
Huh.
And they made a few singles, not a hit, well, at least not with me. And then the band had an offer to go to the States.
Uh-huh.
And once that happened, there was no way.
You weren't going to do it. Yeah.
I could go with them.
Sure.
So I ceased to become a member.
Right. Well, it sounds like that was kind of the story with having a day job. Is that
it's always that.
You're handicapped in terms of what you can really commit to.
Yeah. But you know, they would come back to England, and I'd sit here with the band again.
Right.
And I remained friends with Kim until he died just before Christmas.
I'm sorry about that.
And I was, you know, I felt very close to him, and that was a big blow when I heard that he died.
Yeah. Well, I read a really interesting interview with him where he talked about, you know, they said something like, "Well, didn't you have so many members in your band?" He goes, "Well, that's just the way it goes, you know."
Well,
having a lot of people in and out of your band.
I think Kim always had a vision of what he wanted, and it would change from time to time.
Right.
I mean, up until the last, he was still writing new songs,
right,
and trying to find new ways of expression.
So in a way, having the interchangeable members kind of went with what he was writing and working on.
Yes. Yeah. And he was very good at that. I think 2012, something like that. I managed to get I did a Bob Brunning. I managed to get some money out of the record company. I said, "Hey, I got some original songs." And I said, "And if you give me the money,
I'll get Kim Simmons
to play on it and produce it."
Right.
Because he had promised, because I played him my previous album, and he said, "That's okay, but I think you could do better. You need proper production."
Right.
So, okay. Thanks for that, Kim. So, okay, you say that.
There we go.
So we got enough money to spend 10 days in Kim's studio.
That's
in upstate New York.
Yeah.
And mix the album, and we came back with an album after 10 days. And it was interesting to see the way he worked and the way he changed things around.
Yeah.
From the basic concepts which we brought. We got there, and the first thing he said to me was, you know, your vocals are too high. You need to bring your vocals down. So we need to take all the tunes, down about 3 semitones.
Huh.
You know, and there's my wife going, "Oh, what? I gotta learn all these bass parts in in the studio."
Yikes. Yeah.
And I've got to play the piano.
Right.
Yeah, I'm still happy, very happy with the
Yeah.
results.
Yeah.
And he brought in some old Savoy Brown alumni.
So, with the Stars of British Blues, how did you get onto that?
I'd moved out of London by that time and wasn't able to continue a commitment with the blues band because they were mostly, well, they're all London based,
Right.
and their gigs were a lot in the south.
Mm-hmm.
And up here in Sheffield, it's hard to get there in time,
Right.
particularly after work.
Right.
We
should mention that you were a patent lawyer most of this time, right?
Oh yeah, all of this time, yeah,
the whole time,
European patent attorney,
right,
yeah,
right,
yeah.
So you were a seriously law schooled professional.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's an interesting life. I'm not sorry I did it. It was and it's quite competitive because a lot of it is in court, arguing cases and one thing and another. So it was okay.
So you had left the blues band because they were London based.
Yes, and then for a while, well, I never left them in the sense that I stopped playing with them. When
difficult to play with them.
When they came up this way,
right, I would
always go and play with them. Yeah,
right.
And I think I was welcome.
Right, and you've remained friends with all these.
We're
guys.
still friends, even now. Hillary and I, by this time, were together, and we, for quite a while, we played shows around village halls and little country places. We would develop shows. I'd write songs. And they would have some sort of a theme. And the Arts Council in Britain would subsidise us to go out and play in small places. It doesn't make you famous, but the money's quite good.
Right.
So you can't complain about that.
Yeah.
And then I met a fellow up here who was at the time a school teacher, and he knew a lot of people on the scene. Considering that he had no connections with the music business, and he was a very good friend of Taj Mahal's, and he had the phone numbers of quite a large range of folks who he regularly talked to, and I mean, I don't know how he became friends with them. I suppose by going to gigs and then chatting. And he said to me, "Well, why don't you get together an all-star band?" And he said, "I'll do the phoning for you." So we got an all-star band together, and we got Long John Baldry to front the band. And Kim Simmons kindly came and played guitar for us. Right.
And was he living here at the time?
No, he had to come over to do it.
Wow.
As did Baldry. He was living in Canada.
Right, that's right, because he was in Vancouver. Yeah.
And Tom McGuinness from the blues band.
Okay.
So that we had two guitars. Well, we had Colin Allen on drums, who had been with John Mayall for a number of years. And I'm trying to think who Dick Hexel-Smith we had on.
Oh, right, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who you played with in Deluxe Blues Band.
Yes, a lot of gigs with the Deluxe Blues Band. Very eccentric fellow.
Yeah.
And
I love his book, by the way. The Blowing the Blues book.
I haven't read that.
Oh,
I'm told
great,
I'm told you should read it.
It is so fun. It's such a great read. Yeah.
It's a real old time eccentric.
Yes.
Yeah. And we had Peter Green.
Right.
I think most of the gigs that the All Stars did, we had Peter Green, although it was very difficult because he was a ward of court.
Yes. Now, was that mainly in the UK that you were able to work with him, or was it all over?
No, we worked with him in Copenhagen, in Notodden for the Blues Festival there, in Orkney. I seem to think we did the festival in Belgium. We mostly did big festivals.
And you were saying it was really difficult to be able to get him to come on board because of the award of the
He was made a ward of court, which
Right.
means that you're not able to look after your own affairs.
right.
So we had to go to a judge in chambers and say, we've got this gig.
Yeah.
The judge, what's a gig? How much is he going to be paid? All of this. And then he needed.
You had to have a minder. Who
He
did
needed
you
24
get
hours.
for that?
Well, he was living with a young Serbian woman who I think was very fond of him, and she did actually act as his minder.
Okay.
And all the time that he was with us, she was his minder. So apart from, we did the San Francisco Blues Festival, but we couldn't get him to that, mostly because of getting the visas. That was really complicated.
You said that was real last minute.
Oh God, yeah. My visa arrived 5 days before.
That's so nerve-wracking.
And I know Tom Mazzolini, who's the Blues Festival,
right.
and he's, has your visa come through yet, Bob? No, not yet. No.
I think any promoter is going to get real nervous when things are like that.
Yeah, but anyway, it came through.
Yeah.
And we did it. People who think that a musician's life is just
simple,
standing up there and
anything
playing,
but,
it's there's a lot goes on behind the scenes.
That's right.
A lot of
That's right. So with the All Stars, how long did that last as a band? Did you guys ever record?
Yes, there's an album on Indigo. No, SPV, German label, SPV.
Okay.
From the Notodden concert, and which I think was recorded by the radio station.
Oh,
the Norwegian radio.
Right.
And they gave us the tapes. So we were able to put it out as an album. And we edited it down. And I think it's nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was good.
Is that still in print, do you know?
No, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's the last album that Long John Baldry made, I believe.
Wow. Okay.
Because he died soon afterwards.